we go. I'm Jenny. Come ride with me while we have a little chit chat about random things that go through my head. So I was, what was it? I want to say it was called The Conspiracy Tapes. It's a podcast I listened to on Spotify. And they had a segment about Megan Hess. Oh, before we go there, I do want to put a little discretionary warning out. If you have a problem with death and dying topics, and none of us want to do that, right? But if the topic bothers you, you probably shouldn't listen to this video. There may be some a little bit gruesome things that come up, but I'm going to try to keep it as respectful as possible. Oh, but it's not a pretty tale, okay? So you might want to wait till my next one. Anyway, so the lady that we're talking about is Megan Hess and her mother, Shirley Cock. And they had a funeral home / event center, which seems like a really weird combination to me, but whatever, you do you. And this was in a town called Montrose, which I would have pronounced Montrose, but that's how they pronounce it, Montrose. And I believe it was in Colorado. And so they would perform cremation services for the family of the decedents, right? And they were totally scamming these people. So they would do different things. They would either request donation from them, and from the family. Did they want to donate the body? And under the guise of helping, research. Cancer was a big one that they would use. Okay, a big type of research that they would mention in their donation. And sometimes they didn't. Not everybody wanted to donate the bodies, right? So this went on for like 8 years. And then somewhere along the line, it came out that, well, let me go back a little bit. They had employees, of course, and apparently Megan had a kind of a strong personality. I'll put it that way, but you could also say she was gaslighting her employees, because they would notice things that were odd, and she must have been a great liar. That's all I can think of. So one of the employees goes down, they have to keep the bodies frozen if they're not cremating them, or if they need to wait to cremate them. They freeze the bodies, okay? Or they'll keep them in a cooler. But anyway, they had a walk-in. And, when you go into a funeral home or mortuary, someplace like that where they're dealing with dead bodies, there is a certain level of respect that is expected, for one thing, so it should be neat and orderly. There's also you're dealing with a lot of things that could potentially be unhygienic, okay? In other words, containing diseases or part of the decay process. So you really want to be meticulous in the way that you handle the bodies of the deceased for your own personal safety. So anyway, this employee goes into this walk-in, and there are bodies just everywhere. There's no order to them. They're laying on the floor. They're kind of shoved in, and it was not cool. And she questioned Megan about it, and Megan's like, oh yeah, she made up an excuse, I believe, was that one of the local crematories, an associate business, had their cremation machine had broken down, and so they were backlogged, and they're just storing bodies for them. Yeah, okay, whatever. But anyway, this employee knew it wasn't right, but she also kind of believed her, And there were other employees who, they would find a chainsaw there, like a real chainsaw that you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot, the hardware store. And they would hear sawing going on, and there were parts of the business that, from what they were saying, they weren't allowed to go in, which kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not 100% sure. And I never worked for the funeral industry or the body, whatever you want to call it, where you process bodies that are deceased for whatever purpose. Okay, I'm just going to put it that way. So I don't know if there's actual restrictions on who's allowed in the room. Like, is an admin allowed in the room for certain legitimate business purposes? I don't know. Okay, but that's what they said. There was parts of this business that certain people were not allowed in. Okay, and there was somebody else who went into the, I guess their crematory business was in the crematorium itself was in a separate building, and someone went in there and noticed that there were buckets of gray, sandy, dusty-like material with scoops in them, and that was a red flag. And so what happened was people started finding out. Well, there was an investigation done, and they found out that this man, they called him Cactus. Come to find out, Cactus isn't even his. The FBI got involved and found out that Cactus. I don't know how they do this, okay? Because I thought there would be nothing discernible after someone was cremated, as far as DNA is concerned or whatever. But apparently there is, because according to what I heard, was Cactus's ashes were predominantly female, okay? And there was other things in that, like people were starting to find out that there were pieces of metal. And I'm not talking about metal like from fillings or joint replacement parts. I'm talking about metal like buttons off of clothing that they never owned, or, things that shouldn't be in there. Basically, trash, okay? And it's sad to say, but that's what's happening. And there was a lot of things that were exchanged for the ashes, such as kitty litter and cement dust, and sometimes it would be mixed. I don't know how this occurs either, like just a mixture of different bodies that have been cremated. Like, I don't get that. I really don't get that. But and people were having a hard time getting the remains back from their cremated loved ones. It was just so bad. So there was there's things that weren't very clear to me. Like, I don't know how they can tell that. Oh, I do know how. So anyway, the FBI was doing an investigation on them, and they went in and they did get records. And amazingly, like, why do you do this? Okay, so they found the records. I guess who they sold various body parts to. They must have kept some kind of records, and that's how they also found the victims. Okay, of the family. I don't know who's the actual victim here either. The people who were left behind or the decedent. I can't, or maybe all of them. So anyway, they found the families. Okay. Of the FBI found the families of the people who had body parts sold off without their consent. Okay. And one of them, I believe his name was Michael. And this is the part that I don't understand. Oh, because it was the records. Duh, Jenny. Come on, keep with it. So Michael had. You can fast forward if you don't want to hear the gruesome stuff, okay? His head was missing. She had sold his head off, and it was sold to a company called Plasticine America. And you might have seen things that Plasticine America does. So I don't know if you call this science or art or some kind of amalgamation between the two, but basically what this company does is they take bodies or body parts, including animals, because I think I've seen one of a horse that was like in sections of the horse. And they treat it somehow, and this body part becomes solid, and then they paint it, and they do it in various things. Like you might see somebody, doing a layup shot or kicking a soccer ball, or maybe if they do it, say for like a medical facility, you might see half of a body or half of a body part, or things that would be revealed during dissection. Okay, well, with Michael's head, they did that, and then they sold his head. They sold his head to Vanderbilt University, Medical University. It's part of their psychology department, and I believe they still have it. I don't know how to take that, and of course, in the podcast that I was listening to, Vanderbilt had nothing to say, and I can't really say I blame them, because they're like 3 steps away now. And the same thing with Plasticine USA, or America, Plasticine America. They don't know where they get the body parts from, right? And so here's the thing, right? Even though we have people hoarding body parts and dead bodies and things like that because they're shady, there's still basically a need for cadavers and body parts. Okay, and I know that sounds really horrible, but it's the truth, okay? Because for the main one is having cadavers go to medical schools where med students can, and actually practicing doctors, licensed practicing doctors, when new techniques and machineries and technology comes out, you want them to practice on a real body before they practice on you, okay? You see what I'm saying? So this is very, very necessary, and they don't necessarily need the whole body per se. So there's actually, it's kind of like parting out a car. There's more money to be made if you part out parts of the body. So a leg, an arm, different parts of the body, and you can send that to various places just for that, one specific, say like somebody's learning how to do joints, learning something about knee joints, so a knee joint, they don't need all the rest of the body, they just need the knee joint. That's the kind of thing I'm saying, right? I'm so sorry if this is hard for you to listen to. Anyway, so in the end, what they did was they kind of screwed up. They would ship these body pieces out, and most of the time they're frozen, right? And they would ship them. There's a way to do it. It's supposed to be hard packaging, and through FedEx, there's also tons of regulations on mailing things like this. It happens all the time, okay? But as far as actually shipping, it's not illegal. You have to get it from one place to another, so that part's not illegal. But there is a process to do to ship certain things, and this is considered hazmat, right? Because they could be contaminated with diseases, communicable diseases, and so they're supposed to be shipped a certain way to ensure safety for everybody that has to handle this package along the way. And they didn't do that. So that's how it kind of came to light. It was traced back to them, and they got Megan got 20 years basically for mail fraud, and her mother got 15 years because she contributed. As it turns out, the mother was the one who was in charge of piecing out the body, okay, just making it repackaged. I don't know how else to say it. So this got me thinking, because not that I have doubts, but my mother and my father were both cremated, and they're actually in the same urn together, which is kind of sweet, I think. I mean, I don't know. We all have different feelings on this. And my very, very, very best girlfriend, she died of cancer and really didn't have a lot of money. And she was in Oklahoma, and most of her family, well, all of her family really is in Maryland. So she donated her body to science. And it took about 4 months for her family to get the body back. And what they did was, she had a very good friend who I actually have never met, but I have spoken to on the phone when my friend was in the process of dying and when she did finally pass away. And we're still friends on Facebook. And so when her body was returned, it was returned to this lady in Oklahoma where my friend lived, and then she shipped it to her family in Maryland. And when she told me, that she had gotten her remains back, and she did tell me that there was I never saw it, okay, because I've never had possession of it, but she had seen the list of different things that were done with her body. In other words, I think it was like 80 things that her body contributed to. So that to me tells me that whoever handled her body and used it for the purposes that they were supposed to, had an accountable record to do exactly what she wished. And of course her friend got the body back. I mean, the family got the body, and when the body was returned, that's when they had a memorial service for her. So it took about 4 months. Now my parents, it was handled a little differently for both of them. My dad, we didn't have a viewing for him. We just had a memorial service, so nobody saw him laid out, or however you want to say it. He was never in a coffin. My mom, on the other hand, she did want people to see her, and she had family. They had to travel a bit of a ways before they got to see her. So she was in a coffin that was actually crematable, and it was still pretty. It wasn't a cardboard box, okay, but it was like a lightweight wood. It was blue and white. She would have loved it. It was lined on the inside, and it was made specifically for the kind of thing that we did, where you could have a viewing and then the body would be cremated afterwards. So they just closed it up. Whatever clothes she had on were, and jewelry and glasses or whatever, that all that went into the cremation machine with her. So I don't personally have any doubts of what happened to my family or my girlfriend, because of just who we knew, and the way that each thing was handled. But I did learn some things. So the things that I've learned, now this one thing, I could be wrong on it, but I don't think I am. If I am, please put this in the comments below, because this is really important, okay? But I believe that you cannot sell your body before you die. So I cannot say, I want to sell my body to such and such institution for scientific research, okay? So when I die, we release my body to this place, okay? I believe you cannot do that. Or brokerage firm. I don't see why you can't sell your body to a brokerage firm. I mean, you can sell houses or whatever, you can sell everything but your own body. But anyway, you can't do that. However, if for some reason a body is donated, and a lot of times this happens not so much with people like me who want to donate their body but more like people who they might be a homeless person that has no next of kin, or people who don't know who they are, and they're found somewhere and they can't contact the family member. A lot of times it's people like that. So they will donate that body to wherever. They use the body for whatever, research or, anatomy lessons or whatever it is that they use it for. And then whatever's left, that institution that now has possession of that body can sell it to wherever. Okay? So it's kind of like regifting. It's worse than that. Well, I don't want to say it's worse than that. It's legal. It needs to be done. It's resourceful. It's not wasteful. It's kind of sad though, and it does leave opportunities for lots of scams. Okay, so anyway, they have a legal right to do that. And one of the places that I know of that has received bodies that were illegally obtained or body parts, I should say. Not only was it Vanderbilt who had this man's body part, but also Harvard Medical came up in it too. But, see, here's the thing. I mean, I can name drop like that. They don't necessarily know where these body parts come from. And I think I already said that once before. It's third hand. So, there's that. But to me, it just seems like I would want to know what happened to my loved ones' body parts if we were donated them. And another thing that I just want to put this out there, there are certain diseases where you cannot donate organs, like hepatitis, HIV, cancer. You can't donate organs if the person who passes away has these different kinds of conditions. But that does not mean that their body's not useful. Like my girlfriend, she had cancer. She had a lot of cancer, actually, a lot of cancer. But they were still able to use her body for different things. And that was another problem that happened with how these body parts were being sold is, you kind of have to disclose that this person died of such and such. If you know, you may not know if it was a homeless person that died on the corner. They might have just froze to death, or maybe they died from something else. So there's, the person who's going to be handling it, whether it's a med student or anybody else, really needs to know if there's something in this tissue that's going to possibly cause harm to them. That's professionalism there, And they were selling body parts that should not have been sold for organ donation. That's really shitty. Sorry. Imagine if you received somebody's liver, or your child received somebody's liver, and you find out that they had HIV. I'm just going to say it like that. Like, how would you feel? Okay? That's not right. That's where it becomes criminal. Good Lord. Anyway, I also learned that when you have a loved one cremated, you have a right to witness that. I didn't know that. Okay, I did not know that. Nobody said anything to me that I can recall when my parents were deceased. And this is something I'm going to bring up to my kids if for some reason there's no opportunity for my body to be donated and they have to go through with cremation, just without, that yes, you can be there to witness it, or you could have a third party witness the cremation, and that way you see that that person is the person that went in and they are the person that comes out. Okay, I don't know who it would be. I personally don't know that I would have wanted to watch either one of my parents going in. That's pretty bad. You're already dealing with the grief. But that brings me to the last topic here, and particularly in the United States, we are very hands-off when it comes with serving our deceased loved ones. Okay? And I'm going to say it like that, like serving them, because different cultures have different practices, and we know that. Like, I don't know if it's specifically Hindu, but I know that there's some cultures that in India where they have an open fire where you can see the flames, and they put their bodies on it, and it becomes a family thing. The family does this, and so who's there. And the same thing with I don't know where this is, but there's other cultures where every year they bring the bones, they actually handle the bones and the bodies of the people who are deceased. They put clothes on them, they have picnics that day, they eat, they celebrate, they decorate, and they commune with their ancestors that are not here anymore. But here in my culture, in the United States, we have very stringent laws about handling dead bodies. Even in some, did you know this? In some places, you can't even bury Fluffy in your backyard. That you have to contact the county to get. And this is a place that I lived. You couldn't bury your pet in the yard. You had to turn it over, of course, for a fee to the county for them to dispose of it. Or I guess you could handle it privately, like if you went to a pet cremation, But yeah, you can't bury your dog or your cat in the backyard. Anyway, we are very, very hands off. And I think that makes us, I'm saying this with discretion here, okay? It makes us vulnerable to criminal activity and scams and things like that. But I do want to make it very clear, as with most professions, the people who perform these services are professional. They take their profession very seriously, okay? And that includes dealing with our loved ones. It's a terrible place to be in. Anybody who's had someone in their family pass away and have to deal with all the things that come with it, the grief, the business side of it, getting everybody together, the food, whatever it is that your family decides to do or not do. It's a lot. It's a lot to process and do, and that in itself makes us very vulnerable as well. And I'm not saying in any way, I do not want to come across as judgmental, because I'm not being judgmental. I mean, I've been there. I know how hard it is. Some people can't even touch a dead body, and then other people will throw themselves on someone that passed away that they love. So we all have a whole spectrum of how we deal with it, and then we have our cultural thing on top of it. But what I am kind of saying, I don't know how this would come about, I just think we need to be a little bit more hands-on and find out what our rights are, or our legal rights as somebody who, family member, loved one, that we are responsible for taking care of after they've passed on. And I don't know. Okay, so put it down there. If you've listened this long, do this. Help our friends out so we all know what to do. Because it's not easy, and hopefully these little things that we talk about along the way will help you, and will come back to you when you need that information, I hope. But yeah, it's tough. I feel so bad for those families. And there was something that was interesting too, as far as the family goes. Some of them wanted to know, they wanted to know more about the cremains that they had, and others did not want to know. That, you know, so there was that. And then one other little thing I wanted to throw out there. I don't know how this worked, okay? Specifically, it was a long time ago, but a friend of mine that I used to work with, her mother passed away, and she was very, very sick, and it took her a long time to pass away. And they had some jewelry that they put on. I don't know if it was a necklace or a bracelet, something like that, but it was beads. It was some kind of beads that would be able to withstand the heat of the cremation. This is where I say, you know, everybody has to deal with it, but you're gonna have to do it your own way, and we are so hands off. But her siblings, what they did was, after they got the ashes back, they went through her ashes. You know, they had a little like private kind of ceremony thing. I don't know how it all went, but they were together when this happened, and they went through her ashes, and they each got some of her beads. So they knew for a fact that that was their mother. I have my dad's ashes. They're in a container. I've never touched them. If I had doubts or something like that, or I don't know. And I'm definitely not saying what she did was wrong, because she knows that was her mom. And for her and her siblings, I think it was kind of healing for them, you know? And they had something tangible that was part of their mother that they can hold on to. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. You tell me what you think, and I will talk to you later.